This playoff edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, you get 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off selected cards with our promo code Sports Addict. Not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. Do the math. 20 becomes 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60. You get the picture. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah. I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah, oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, can't relax. Original, I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they...
Welcome to Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. It is time. We made it. It is here. We did our full playoff preview yesterday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But we are here breaking down playoff hockey. Finally, 2 games tonight, 4 games tomorrow, and the series finish starting on Monday night. So 3 days of game ones, and I cannot wait to break down everything. I'm Mark Sauter, and right beside me, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroes. You read his gambling picks on Winners and Wires. You also read his NHL work now on Total Apex Sports. You see him all over Total Apex Sports, talking football, talking playoff basketball, talking baseball. Andre, how you feeling on a playoff Saturday, bro?
I'm ready. I'm so ready. It's finally, I don't know, the last few weeks, just talking about some of these teams was just
been tough.
Bag. But the postseason's here. I know it's the wrong sport, but the Knicks play tonight officially marks it for me. So I'm so excited for the next, hopefully, 2 months to just be stressful as hell.
Oh, yeah. The anxiety hasn't quite reached it yet, but I got my brother coming over. We got the doubleheader tonight. Of course, Carolina is hosting the Islanders. Boston is hosting the Maple Leafs. So my bro's coming over, and we're just going to stress eat. And I think I got to eat all my food before the Leaf game start, because once that starts, man, I don't know about you, but I don't eat during playoff games for my home team, dude. It's stressful, man, but yeah, we're going to break down it all. It's snowing right now, currently, right beside me out my window. So I guess it's still hockey season. So I'm ready to break it all down. A couple announcements before we get started. We'll go from least important to most important. Least important. Also, shout out Charles, our guy. Like Andre's guy, I feel like he's my guy just based on connections. I feel like I never met him, but I feel like I know him. I feel like we're close. I really want to call him Chuck, but I don't know if we're that close. I don't know if he likes the name Chuck. Whenever I see Charles, I want to say Chuck, but I don't know what he prefers. So I don't want to make Charles angry. But anyway, announcements. Number one. And Andre, I haven't talked to you about this. Maybe you disagree, but I feel like we're on the same page about this. With all of this talk, with Arizona moving to Utah, and of course the press conference was yesterday, and all of this stuff, you're not going to hear any of that stuff here for the playoffs. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about Arizona. I don't want to talk about Utah. I don't want to talk about any of the shenanigans. Any updates that you have, maybe we'll do a show. Chuck is fine with me. Perfect. Then Chuck, I love it. Absolutely love it. Maybe we'll do a show aside from these previews to talk about all this, but it's playoff hockey, man. Let's just talk about what's on the ice. I'm done with all that shenanigans. You're not going to hear any updates here. So if you really care about the Arizona to Utah move, which is important, find it somewhere else. This is really all I'm going to say. That's just how I feel about it. My second update is I am excited to announce that I am now an NHL writer for Total Apex Sports. So check out Total Apex Sports. I will be reviewing the Toronto Maple Leafs Boston Bruins series game by game, as well as my favorite bets for those games as well. So I'm very excited. Shout out to Total Apex Sports for having me on board. Appreciate you guys for not only broadcasting our show, but also letting me write about the NHL. So super stoked on that. Can't wait. My first piece will be dropping later on today. So be on the lookout for that. All right. Without further ado, Andre, before we get into... Man, it's really snowing outside. I can't believe what I'm looking at right now. I was wearing a t-shirt yesterday. It's bizarre. But before we get into the games tonight on the ice, is there anything that I missed? Anything that, with regards to the playoffs, or anything that you want to hit? Anything on your mind in the NHL playoff world before we get into the games tonight?
I think you forgot to mention that we won't talk about, acknowledge, or support the NHL's commissioner until he's getting booed on the ice after the Rangers win the cup. I think it's the last thing we needed to add.
It's the best moment all year, right? It's like an expected thing. Like, it's when he gets booed. It's so funny, dude. I can't. It's so funny. All right. Well, with all that being said, crossed off a bunch of things already. Here we go. John, of course, is not with us. He will be back. Lots of stuff going on in his world. So we're just, I don't know, we're doing it, and he'll be back. Let's get started with these games. The New York Islanders are in Carolina tonight to kick off this series. Game 1, 5 p.m. Carolina minus 245 favorites at home. The Islanders are plus 200 dogs on the road. Road dogs. Minus 1.5 for Carolina is plus 120. Plus 1.5 for the Islanders is minus 142. The over 5.5 plus 102. The under minus 122. Andre, let's start with you, dude. What do you see in this game tonight? Game 1.
Oh, man. Game 1 is a rematch of last year. It's a battle of the Ahos. It's two teams who finished the season very well. The Islanders ran through April with a 9-game point streak. 8-0-1 was their final tally. That's how they got this far. Looking at the Canes, they just, since January, they're 32-10-3. Had a better than a 70 points percentage in every month since 2024. 5-2 April, just short of not only the division title but the President's Trophy. So great season for them. One thing stands out right away. Oh, I need water. Excuse me, real quick. I just choked.
You're all good. Necessary.
So one thing that stands out right away is that I talked about it yesterday. The road teams won 7 in a row in matchups between these teams. It goes back to last postseason, the last 3 games of that postseason series. I don't think that's going to continue tonight. The Canes were great at home all season. The Islanders struggled on the road all season. 18-17-6. It's the playoffs. You don't get a loser's point anymore. 18-23, minus 14 goal differential. just not good. You look at their success in April, a lot of it came at home. 5 of their wins in April came at home. Of those games, they only played 3 playoff teams, the Rangers twice and the Predators. The Rangers is a rivalry, so you can kind of toss stuff out the window, even though that was their only loss and it was on the road. Predators was a home game. They didn't really have a real road test against a playoff team in April during this surge of theirs. And I think that their road performances all season, because they did lose that Rangers game in the Garden, the only playoff team they faced on the road in April. I think that combined with the fact that they still have the worst PK in the NHL, even though they made the playoffs, that's a huge red flag. Their 8th in save percentage, they allow the 4th most shots per game. So that kind of nullifies that. They cancel each other out. This team averaged under 3 goals per game, mediocre power play. Like, I just think I think it's going to be a tighter series than people expect. The Islanders finish the season really well. I think there is some continuation of that. I think that their goaltending is strong enough where they can steal a couple games. They can keep games tight. But I think for this game in particular, Carolina's going to set the tone. So I'm going to take them to win by multiple goals. I like that -1.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with regards to this game. I think a couple things for me that kind of stand out, and the very first one is something you mentioned, the special teams. Like, if the Islanders get in power play or in penalty kill trouble, that's dangerous, because Carolina, we know they have the second, just double check that, the second best power play in the league throughout the regular season. Listen, a lot of people will say, well, the regular season doesn't matter. It's a new whatever. It's like, yes, I agree, but also, like, it's the same teams. Like, the teams didn't change. Like, you're not just going to all of a sudden have an awesome penalty kill the first game of the playoffs because the regular season doesn't matter. It's like, no, man. Like, you played 82 hockey games and your penalty killing was the worst. That's not just going to change. So that's a huge, huge thing. I also do think now, yes, the Carolina Hurricanes at home, I had it. Yeah, so the Carolina Hurricanes at home, 27-10-4. Like you mentioned, the Islanders on the road, 18-17-6. It is worth noting that in the season series, the 2 games in Carolina that the Islanders played, they did win them both. They won both games in Carolina. That was in late November and in late December. So how much does that really matter? I don't know, but it happened, and that's like the fact. I think in this series, it is going to take a couple games for the Islanders to get going. I agree with you that it's going to be a closer series than people think, but I just think that Carolina is going to come out guns a-blazing. They're at home. This is a Stanley Cup or bust scenario for Carolina. A lot of people picked them to win the Stanley Cup. A lot of people picked them to represent the East in the Stanley Cup Finals. A lot of people at the beginning of the year picked them to win the President's Trophy. Like, this is not just, oh, Carolina is good. Surprise. It's like, no. In August, a lot of people predicted Carolina to be exactly where they are right now, maybe even better. So I do think it's going to take the Islanders a couple games here to get their feet under them and to really play to the style that they want to play. I can absolutely see Carolina dictating the play for the first couple games. The interesting part for me, and we talked about this yesterday, it looks like Varlamov is getting the start tonight. And I'm really interested to see what happens with that goaltending. It's not odd to see someone start game 1. They get shelled and then another guy starts game 2. Like, that's not a completely weird thing to see in a modern day NHL. That being said, Sorokin's been their number one guy for years. And now all of a sudden Varlamov is coming in and starting game 1. We saw a similar thing with Bobrovsky in game 1 against Boston in last year's playoffs for the Panthers. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of shakes out. But I'm right there with you. I'm taking Carolina -1.5. And we were talking about this pre-show that there's only one game out of all game ones from tonight all the way to Monday night. There's only one game where the total is higher than 5.5. And that is the Oilers and the Kings. Every other game, the total is 5.5. And this game specifically, I'm hammering that over. I see Carolina winning 5-2, maybe 4-2, but that's still clearing the 5.5. So give me the over 5.5 at +102 and give me Carolina -1.5 at +120.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I forgot to say the total, but I'm right there with you. I do. My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm right there with you on the over, though. I think it's going to be like a 4-2, 5-2 games win, like you said. I forgot to talk about the total when I was gone. So.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, I just think it's, I don't know. I just have that feeling that Carolina is just going to come out guns a-blazing and it's going to take the Islanders a couple games. Like, it wouldn't shock me, man, if they're going back to Long Island with the Carolina Hurricanes up 2-0 and then going back to Carolina tied 2-2. Like, that would not shock me in this series at all. Moving on to Boston, where my Toronto Maple Leafs are in Boston for game 1. Boston Bruins -130 at home. Toronto +110 on the road. The over is also, like I said, 5.5 at -125. The under is +105. +1.5 for the Maple Leafs is -238. -1.5 for the Boston Bruins is +195. And to be completely honest with you, any prediction that I'm going to give you here is not a 100% confident prediction. This is what I know. Nylander did not practice yesterday. The belief is that he tweaked something in their final game on Wednesday night. I don't believe that he had any sort of injury. I think, like I said, he either tweaked something or he's sick or something like that, because there's no way, I don't care if you're chasing 100 points, there is no way that you are playing the last 2 games of the season this week if you're hurt. There's just no way. So I would be shocked if he didn't play tonight. It's the playoffs. It's game 1. I would be really shocked if he did not play tonight. But he is questionable, did not practice yesterday. We know that Samsonov is starting in net for Toronto. The goaltending for Boston, I don't believe it has been announced. We'll see what DraftKings has to say. Yeah, the goaltender for Boston has not been announced yet. Complete side note, in 2024, when everybody is gambling on these things, it's 1:00. Like, tell us who's playing in net. Like, enough with this. Like, let's go. We need to know. DraftKings and FanDuel are major partners of the NHL. So, come on. Tell us who's starting. But anyway, it seems like a lot of Boston writers and reporters are speculating that Swayman is going to get the start tonight, even though Allmark did have the better year. And this was a conundrum that they had last year, right? This is the problem that I have. Like, listen, in the regular season, when you have Allmark and Swayman in net, that is lethal. Like, that is something that the majority of teams don't have, to have two legitimate starting goalies on your roster. In the regular season, that is lethal. But in the playoffs, I do question, like, don't you want to know who your guy is? Like, I don't really want to have to rely on a safety net. Like, I would like to know, like, this is our guy. He's starting every game. I don't know. That's just me. When it comes to this game tonight, I'm going to go Toronto here. The problem with the Maple Leafs this will be the 8th year in a row that they've made it to the playoffs. The problem with the Maple Leafs has never been starting series off. Now, last year against Tampa, they got dummied, and then they came out the next game, game 2, and dummied Tampa Bay. So, to me, it's never been really starting series for Toronto. It's been finishing them. That's been the hard part for Toronto. It hasn't been the beginning. I'm gonna go under here. I don't love it. I don't know if I'll bet that yet in my personal life. I do. Samsonov is the real kind of outlier here. Like, again, goaltending hasn't really been the problem for the Maple Leafs in their playoff history. It's been goal scoring. But I think this is going to be a real physical series. I think it's going to be really tight defensively. I do like the under here, under 5.5 at plus 105. If you want to talk me into the over, I'm all ears. Like this one I kind of do flip flop between. But I think, listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs, when you look at, just pulling this up here, when you look at the offensive lines and the defensive lines, I think that there's no question that Boston has the upside as far as defensive players. They have a very, very good top 4 in their defensive unit, and obviously goaltending leans in Boston's favor as well. But when you're looking at the firepower up front, it's really not even that close. You have Brad Marchand and you have Pasternak, and other than that, Toronto, they have better complete lines 1 through 4. I really think that Toronto offensively should dominate the Bruins in the defensive end. I really do. I think this will be a close series. Whoever wins tonight, I'm just telling you guys this right now. Whoever wins tonight, when game 2 comes around, my prediction will be whatever team loses tonight. It's going to be that type of series. I talked about it yesterday during the prediction show. I really do think that this is a very good matchup for Toronto. The last thing I'll say, I've been a little bit long-winded here, but the last thing that I'll say is, I said this to you before we started recording, Andre. The one player that really scares me for Boston, besides Pasternak, and I can actually lump Marchand into this as well, is Pat Maroon. And the reasoning behind that is the biggest Achilles heel for the Maple Leafs is their physicality and their grit. And I think they have dressed that with adding Ryan Reeves, who will be playing tonight, with adding Jake McCabe, Edmondson, Bertuzzi, Domi. They're a much more physical team and a much more feisty team than they have been at any point in the last 8 years. But Pat Maroon is a pest, dude. Like, if Leaf fans don't already hate Pat Maroon for when he was playing with the Lightning, they're going to hate him by the end of this series. This guy is going to cause havoc. He's going to bother you. He's going to try to get you to make penalties. So that's really my biggest concern, to be honest with you, is if the Boston Bruins drag you into this cheap physical dogfight, what is your response going to be from the Toronto Maple Leafs side? But talking about game 1, I think the Leafs come out and I think they win tonight. As far as props and all that, I'm probably not going to go crazy with props. until we get a couple games in. It's hard to know really what we're looking at until we kind of feel out the first 2 games. But I'm taking Maple Leafs plus 110 and give me the under at plus 105. Andre, what do you got?
I mean, so right? Playoff history, the Bruins have won 7 straight against this team dating back to the beginning of 2023. They've won how many playoff series in a row? 6 playoff series in a row, including 3 since 2013. All went 7 games. You know all the history of that stuff, right? For me, this series, it starts and ends in Boston. Not just literally because it starts and ends in Boston, but because physically and mentally, for me, the Maple Leafs need to win game 1.
Yep.
And they need to win game 7. And those are both in TD Garden. Because between there is when I think the goaltending defense disparity becomes tougher until the finish line. And I think the Maple Leafs are going to respond and win this game. Honestly, they're not going to keep losing to this team. They're better defensively and goaltending than they were at the end of this season. We've talked about it extensively. They were just trying to get Matthews 70. Nothing else really mattered. The Bruins may have 7 more points for the season, but you look at the win-loss records, Maple Leafs were only 1 game behind them. There's not that much of a gap between these teams. This is not the Bruins of years past, especially offensively, especially on that power play. There's no perfection line anymore. What the Maple Leafs do have is Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, potentially Nylander. John Tavares even had 65 points this year. You said it perfectly. The offensive weaponry that the Maple Leafs have is more than enough for this Boston team. And I know Boston's capable of scoring. I know Boston will score, but I don't know if they have the plan to slow them down in game 1. I think the Bruins are going to need to come up with a counter to the Maple Leafs attack, and the Maple Leafs are going to need to come up with a break for that. So I think round 1 of this series goes to the Maple Leafs. Trust their offense more. You have to get a feel for the Bruins side. Which goalie are you going to ride with? The kind of curse of having a 1A, 1B instead of a clear 1 and then a really good 2. It's not a Winnipeg situation where you know who the starter is going to be. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be Swayman? Is it going to be Allmark? Both of them are going to get tossed in there. That's a lot of pressure on the goalie right away. It's not okay, I'll bounce back next game. It's this might be my only start of the postseason. Toronto, for better or worse, they know who they're rolling with in net to start with. I just think that kind of benefits them mentally. So I'm going to roll with the Maple Leafs playing actual hockey instead of Matthews ball to take game 1, plus 110. I like the over in this one because I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be Maple Leafs score 4. I don't think the Bruins are going to go down easy. I see 3 coming from them. Might go to overtime. Sorry for your heart rate in advance. I hope you have a cardiologist on speed dial. But this is I feel like this game, and honestly, most of this series is going to fit a Maple Leafs mold of just a little bit more scoring. So I'm going to take the over in this one. I know you like the under, but I see this being a 4-3 final.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, like the odds books, like the sports books have it absolutely right. And under with the Toronto Maple Leafs should always be plus money. Like that's a risky venture to bet over or to bet under in a Toronto Maple Leaf game. So I'm right there with you. And I'll just say this to add. I think that the fact that this is starting on the road, we do have the tendency to overthink these type of things. But I think for the Maple Leafs, like the air is thick in the city of Toronto. Like there is a lot of pressure on this team, a lot. And I mean, it's why Ryan O'Reilly didn't want to re-sign here. It was just like when playoff time comes, man, the tension is thick. And so what we saw last year, game 1 against Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay won like 7-2 or something just outrageous. And there has been that tendency when the Leafs start the playoffs at home for them to just grip their sticks a little bit too tight, just being a little bit tight. And I think being on the road for game 1 is a huge benefit for the Maple Leafs. I really, really do. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, moving on to our best bets, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the whole store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off with our promo code Sports Addict. Get 10% off regular priced or sales priced items. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing. It's all a total at Total Apex at firstroundcollectibles.com. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. First Round Collectibles, that's the number 1, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. Andre, what do you got, man? Best bet. Oh, my guy just dropped off. All right. Well, I'll give you my best bet, and hopefully he will join me back here in a second. I'm taking the low-hanging fruit. I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty positive he was going to take the same thing. I haven't taken it yet, though. Andre, you ready to go, bro? What do you got your best bet?
Yeah, apparently I got an unstable connection. My bad about that one.
Oh, you're good.
My best bet for today, let's get it out the way nice and early. Canes -1.5 at +120. Power play, second best in the league. Islanders, worst PK in the league. Talked about how the Islanders played on the road this year, 18-23. -14 goal differential. Maybe it was 13. I don't remember the exact number. Didn't really get tested on the road against playoff teams down the stretch. I think it's a bad spot for them in a series that isn't going to be as rough as people think. So Kane set the tone early. They score 4, they score 5, whatever. Islanders aren't scoring more than 2, and that's a multi-goal win. So PNC Arena's erupting tonight when the Storm Surge gets the job done.
Absolutely love it. And you know what, man? We're going to do a little same game parlay because the only chance that either one that there was going to be a Maple Leaf Boston bet on our best bets was if you picked that game and you didn't. So we're doing I'm not touching a best bet for that game, dude. I'm a very superstitious guy. And so yeah, I'm going to the Islanders Carolina game 2, which, hey, listen, it's a 5-10 start. You nail this best bets parlay. By the time the Leaf game starts, you got some cash. There's some playoff basketball on as well. There's baseball. There's lots to bet on after 8 p.m. So win this parlay. You got some cash to play with for the evening. I'm picking the over. I'm going on the over. Over 5.5 at +102. We talked about it. I just think that Carolina. So the one thing that I actually didn't talk about, which you and I have talked about on the show with John in weeks past, is, and I believe I actually mentioned it yesterday on the playoff preview, is that one of the biggest problems for Carolina in the playoffs is scoring goals. They got swept by Florida in the conference finals, and every single game was by 1 goal. And you add Jake Gensel, and plus the big boys that you already have. This is something that needs to be corrected, and I just feel like they're just going to come out guns a-blazing tonight, man. I'm seeing, like I said, 5-2, 4-2, maybe 5-3. But either way, I see under or over 5.5 at +102.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. Excuse me. Kane's puck line on its own is +120. Over 5.5 on its own is +102. Parlay together, it's +240. Now, I will say, DK does not have Sebastian Aho props for this game. They only have
Ooh.
Sebastian Aho. It's very interesting. They have one, but not the other.
Very interesting. Okay. Something to keep an eye out on.
The AI got confused.
Yeah. I mean, rightfully so. I get confused too, so. And I'm not nearly as smart as a computer, so I totally get it. Amazing stuff, man. Appreciate you. What was the odds for that parlay?
Plus 240.
Plus 240. All right. That's good. I'm all about it. Good stuff. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Whether you're watching live or watching throughout the day, we appreciate you. Shout out to Total Apex Sports. Thank you for having us on board and for having me on board. Have a look out for my first NHL piece on totalapexsports.com. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Good luck on your bets. Promo code Sports Addict for 10% off at First Round Collectibles. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.